And things are looking pretty clear up here. This is the Jefferson County sky cam overlooking the city of Birmingham. And you can see here it's relatively clear with the city lights there in the background. But looking over Wednesday's severe threat, you can see here the gamma, which is a relatively new model system developed by the folks at Oklahoma University, has significant tornado parameter values of 6 over southern Illinois, which is just incredible. I mean, anything over 2 is already pretty high, and to see 6 on an ensemble like this is just crazy. For Alabama, it has about a 2.5 covering the northwest half of the state, with values of 3 not that far to the west. Tornado threat should remain pretty low for most of the state, however, as most of the kinematic energy is way far north of us. And here's a little bit of a composite sounding pulled from the GFS over southern Illinois, and you can really see here why this day looks so dangerous ahead. You might be thinking to yourself, well, yeah, this looks like your pretty typical Dixie sounding, but take a look at the mid-level winds on the wind profile. If it was your typical setup, that 3 to 6 kilometer shear would be miles weaker, likely leading to a more linear fashioned storm mode. But we don't have that in this case. What we have is strong deep layer shear, which is perpendicular to the cold front, which has led forecasters, including myself, into believing that discrete supercells may be on the table in this parameter space. And this is why the Storm Prediction Center has opted to keep the 30% risk with this outlook cycle, keeping up with possibly the most intensely worded outlooks I've seen for any severe weather threat. It says, widespread significant tornado outbreak likely Wednesday afternoon into Thursday at the top. A rare overlap of high instability and extreme dynamics coupled with volatile low-level mass response will cater an environment specifically capable of long-tracked intense to violent tornadoes with any cohesive supercellular structures. I believe the first time I read this morning, my jaw quite literally dropped by itself, and my wife gave me a look and asked what the matter was. All I told her is that people think at the time. And as grim as that sounds, it still remains the truth. Every model and ensemble has painted a truly destructive image for Illinois since this system came into range of even the GFS, and nobody, and I mean nobody, should be letting their guard down in the coming days. Make sure you have an action plan should a tornado warning be issued for your area. The best advice I can give for families in the risk area is to know where your local tornado shelters are, and if there are none locally, to relocate to an area that does have one like the state governor has said. I never thought I'd see the day that an anticipated tornado outbreak would generate wireless emergency alerts telling you that your family won't be safe if you're not near a public shelter. People on social media are already saying that it's being dramatized, but if you take into consideration the high-density population centers, having public shelters nearby already available to you will prevent road congestion and will allow law enforcement and EMS to quickly dispatch to damaged areas.
And with that bill passed, 10,000 acres of solar farms are expected to be built in West Texas, one step closer to reducing man-made pollution and just one of many. But switching gears here, the Storm Prediction Center has released a first-ever high risk on their Day 3 outlook, shocking many across the nation as state governors issue voluntary evacuation orders for communities across Illinois, urging them to find areas where public underground shelters exist. However, this has been faced with backlash on social media. One person from Chicago on Twitter says, "This is ridiculous. Are we really willing to block up traffic and stop people from going to work because the government says we're all going to die in a tornado on Wednesday? Do you really believe that bullcrap when they're known to lie for a buck?" And people obviously have a right to be angry at traffic, as any of us are, but when you're talking about people fleeing communities that have the possibility of getting damaged or destroyed, it's a pretty insensitive thing to say online.
Looking at everything here, Wednesday just looks absolutely terrifying. I've never seen such agreement on such a devastating scenario ever. I've watched countless outbreaks come to fruition in real time. I've seen models uptrend on days with multiple violent tornadoes, and I don't think anything comes close to this. I know we typically take the HRRR with salt, but I've never seen such a ridiculous amount of supercells come from a single run, all producing high UH swaths in an all-timer of a parameter space. And this has led to the second ever day too high risk from the Storm Prediction Center. They pretty bluntly state that the primary threat is long-tracked violent tornadoes, with the possibility of a bimodal storm mode from Iowa all the way down into Mississippi. And in my honest opinion, some areas may see multiple rounds of supercells producing violent tornadoes, given the possibility that you may get mature prefrontal supercells. One concerning trend I've noticed is that the HRRR is beginning to drag the primary surface low north, which would lead to a corridor of probably one of the most violent tornado-conducive environments ever seen in this nation's history. And it's just totally abundantly clear here that the environment we're working with is a powder keg. It's analogous to the Greenfield EF4 back in May of last year, except we're going to see numerous discrete supercells taking advantage of this should things continue trending north. Other than that, very large hail and destructive winds will be the secondary threats behind the violent tornado risk. Stay safe, everyone, and may God have mercy.
What has been unavoidable for 2 weeks has now knocked on our doorstep to collect our debt. The lungs of many that once heaved shall now brace in hold as the tremor of today's onslaught begins. Such an event as today has been dread since the likes of April 3rd, 1974. Here now on the 9th marks 2,662 weeks since then. The Rapid Refresh V2 ran this morning and is the only model that does not have a northern corridor existing. Meteorologists at the Storm Prediction Center, alongside many colleges that partake in student forecast training exercises, are all bearing witness to the fact that this outlier run initialized far too weakly, yet it still paints a solution to the likes of April 27, 2011, so there isn't much to say anymore. You also have the HRRR, and I don't even have the words to describe just how bad it is. It's just a line of supercells in a ludicrous environment which would support the top-end 95th percentile type of tornadoes. You have about 3,500 to 4,000 joules per kilogram of CAPE abundant atop steep lapse rates exceeding 8 degrees Celsius per kilometer at the lower levels. The system aloft supports widespread divergence, which rules out initiation not happening at all, like some have claimed online. The lack of any preceding convection will allow the warm front to rapidly lift north, with destabilization occurring rather early. Despite the early destabilization, a very evident warm nose will keep a lid on things going through the late morning. As soon as the low starts translating and deepening, a band of supercells will develop from southeastern Iowa down into possibly western Kentucky, with a few rogue supercells here and there.
The National Weather Service has issued Tornado Watch number 177, effective until 8 p.m. Central Daylight Time Wednesday. This watch includes the following counties in Illinois: Cass, Champaign, Christian, Clark, Clay, Coles, Crawford, Cumberland, DeWitt, Douglas, Edgar, Effingham, Ford, Fulton, Jasper, Lawrence, Logan, Macon, Marion, Mason, McLean, Menard, Morgan, Moultrie, Peoria, Piatt, Richland, Sangamon, Scott, Shelby, Stark, Tazewell, Vermilion, and Woodford. Remember, a tornado watch means the conditions are favorable for the development of severe weather, including tornadoes, large hail, and damaging winds, in and close to the watched area. While severe weather may not be imminent, persons should remain alert for rapidly changing weather conditions and listen for later statements and possible warnings. tornado emergency for Donelson and West Point. The National Weather Service in the Quad Cities has issued a tornado warning for western Henderson County in northwestern Illinois, Des Moines County in southeastern Iowa, southeastern Henry County in southeastern Iowa, Lee County in southeastern Iowa, southeastern Van Buren County in southeastern Iowa, northern Clark County in northeastern Missouri, until 3:05 p.m. Central Daylight Time. At 2:32 p.m. Central Daylight Time, a confirmed large and destructive tornado was observed over Croton, or 20 miles west of Fort Madison, moving northeast at 45 miles per hour. Areas previously impacted by the tornado an hour ago are in immediate danger. Take cover now. Tornado emergency for Donelson and West Point. This is a particularly dangerous situation. Take cover now. Expected hazards included a deadly tornado. This tornado was confirmed by trained spotters. The following impacts are expected. You are in a life-threatening situation. Flying debris will be deadly to those caught without shelter. Mobile homes will be destroyed. Considerable damage to homes, businesses, and vehicles is likely and complete destruction is possible. The tornado will be near Donelson around 2:40 p.m. Central Daylight Time. West Point around 2:50 p.m. Central Daylight Time. To repeat, a large, extremely dangerous and potentially deadly tornado is on the ground. To protect your life, take cover now. Move to an interior room on the lowest floor of a sturdy building. Avoid windows. If in a mobile home, a vehicle, or outdoors, move to the closest substantial shelter and protect yourself from flying debris. A large and extremely dangerous tornado is on the ground. Take immediate tornado precautions. This is an emergency situation. emergency for Marion County. The National Weather Service in Memphis has issued a tornado warning for Marion County in northeastern Mississippi until 9:15 p.m. Central Daylight Time. At 8:51 p.m. Central Daylight Time, a confirmed large, violent and extremely dangerous tornado was observed over Egypt, or 8 miles northwest of Aberdeen, moving east at 50 miles per hour. Tornado emergency for Marion County. This is an extremely dangerous and life-threatening situation. Take cover now. Expected hazards included a deadly tornado. This tornado was confirmed by the National Weather Service. Environmental conditions and Doppler radar evidence suggests that this may be an EF5, capable of complete and utter destruction. Activate precautions immediately to preserve you and your loved ones' lives. The following impacts are expected. You are in a life-threatening situation. Flying debris will be deadly to those caught without shelter. Mobile and block foundation homes will be swept away. Above-ground interior rooms are not suitable shelter for a tornado of this magnitude. Locate an underground shelter or concrete structure now. If you are in your vehicle and your ears suddenly pop, it is too late to get to a safe place. Immediately get out of your car and locate a ditch or drainage pipe to seek refuge in. Cover your face and neck with your hands. Neighborhoods will be destroyed. Debris, trees, and power lines will block roadways with power outages likely. Emergency managers should immediately prepare for search and rescue between alternative U.S. Highway 95 and U.S. Highway 278 north of Aberdeen and south of Amory. Additionally, a possible tornado may be trailing to the west of this one. Do not wait to see the tornado. If you hear it, it is too late.